Did you know that brand consistency can significantly increase your revenue? I actually just read that in a report by Lucid Press. I'll go ahead and include the link up here. But here's the thing. That's just one of the 3 things that every coach, consultant, and creative needs to do to create a strong brand. Let's talk about that as we explore how visual content can help you in that journey. Hey everyone, Socially Nina here, and I teach coaches, consultants, and creatives how to build a strong personal brand online using content creation, specifically video. So today we're going to dive all into the 3 things that you need to do to create a visual content strategy. Now, I'm not just talking about creating your social media graphics in Canva or wherever else you create your graphics, but wait, hold the presses. If you haven't watched my first video in this series about how to create a strong personal brand online, I would suggest you start there. This is a series of videos dedicated to you creating a stronger brand online, showing up so people can find you, and of course you could increase your leads to increase your revenue. Okay, today we're gonna talk about the 3 things you must have, like every single marketer, personal brand, whatever. You have to have these 3 things before you actually dive into creating your visual content. Then I'm gonna give you examples of different graphics, different videos, different branding, all of those things and how that fits together in your visual content strategy. Okay, number 1, and this is the whole thing, whether you're doing branding, marketing, they're not the same, by the way. Branding or marketing, you always need to know who you're talking to. I don't know why people skip over this step and make everything about them. It's actually not about you. It's about the perfect client that you want to work with. So the first thing that you want to do is create a perfect client profile. Now notice I'm calling this a perfect client. You're going to hear this as an ideal client avatar, a client avatar, a marketing avatar, marketing audience, all of those. They're very similar. The reason I'm calling this a perfect client profile is because it's someone I want to work with, and it's actually a person. So I want to keep in my mind that I want to work with a specific person. So I have to figure out everything about them so I can actually be the answer to their problems. So start with who you're working with. And I'm talking about not saying all women would benefit from my product and No. Here's the thing. When you're doing branding and marketing and you have products, you need to talk to that one perfect client. So that means if there's that one client that purchased, they paid the invoice on time, they didn't ask for a discount, their project or their, working with them was amazing. It was just like, that was easy, right? That's the person you want to concentrate on. And if you haven't had a client before, think about ideally who you want to work with. You want to be very, very, very specific when you talk about your perfect or ideal client, right? Your perfect client that you want to work with. And I'm talking about very specific. So give her a name, right? And then imagine who she is. So let's say she's a 45-year-old woman who likes to eat out. She has 2 kids. She lives in a home. She graduated from college. She reads OWN magazine. She shops at Trader Joe's. You see where I'm going there? Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because when I use visual content and I show them images, I want them to feel connected to those images. And the images that I'm going to show this woman is going to be different than the images that I show this woman. Why? They're 2 different women. Next thing you want to do is after that, you want to create number 2, which is your brand guide. Your brand guide should be geared towards that person. So would Tanisha like this? Would Tanisha drink this? Would Tanisha say this? Would Tanisha understand this, right? That makes it so much easier when you're selecting stock images, video images, colors, all of those kind of things. So your brand guide is actually going to be related. It's going to connect you to your perfect client. So what that means is you're going to think of the colors you will always use. You're going to think about the terms you will always use. You're also going to think about terms that you never use. You're going to think about how you would address things, like if things came up in the news, whether they're controversial or just any of those things. This is your guide, not only for you. Time out. So I keep on talking about your brand guide. Your brand guide takes some time and you're really going to go in depth with that, and you can use that in your full content creation strategy. However, if you just want something really, really quick for your visual content, you may consider doing a brand board. Now, a brand board, which I will have on the screen here, is all about all of your visuals. So your fonts, your colors, things like that. And it's a lot quicker to create. In fact, I have a video up here. I'm glad I pointed in the right direction this time. That's gonna talk about it. I'll also include the link below, but I highly suggest you put it on paper or digital paper. And I used to actually put my brand board in the back of my desktop. So anytime I create graphics, I just move it over and I can see what the colors are and things like that, or you can print it out, whatever you want. But I highly suggest that you do that step. All right, let's go back. Not only for you to have peace of mind when you're creating your content, but also for your team. So if you have a team and you're telling them, create a graphic, make sure it's pink. Do you know how many rays of pink, how many colors of pink with the tone and saturation and all of those kind of things? There's so many different color pinks out there. You want them to create the exact same color pink that you used last week. Now let's compare just really quick, two different brands so you can see the difference. So this is Fashion Fair. My mother loves Fashion Fair. A lot of baby boomers who are African American love Fashion Fair. That's their thing, right? Now, MAC. When I was growing up, it feels like a long time ago, but when I started wearing makeup, I was used to going into Macy's and getting my MAC makeup done. MAC is very edgy. It's like they have bright colors. Their advertising, even their colors have black in it. It's very bold. Fashion Fair is more muted. It has more minimal colors and it's a little more easygoing. So it appeals to their audience. So the first thing that we did was we found out who we were talking to. The second thing is we created a brand guide. Now the third thing that you want to do is be consistent. Follow your guide. Use the colors all of the time, use the tone, use the cadence, all of those kind of things. The whole point of this is that you remain consistent. Now, let's go ahead and look at some visual content that is going to relate to our clients. We're going to use some examples so you can see exactly what I mean and how creating a strong brand guide and knowing who you speak to is going to help you in creating your visual content. Okay, the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take you to Facebook Insights. Now, before you click off wondering, what does that even have to do with building your perfect client? I'm actually gonna show you. When you use Facebook or any other social media platform, there's a lot of data on the users that are there. What that can do is that can build a profile of what they advertise to you, what happens on your feed, what they show you. All of that is determined by your profile as a person. So as marketers, what we're gonna use is that information to build our perfect client. So here I'm in Facebook Audience Insights. I'll leave the link below and you'll see that you can look at everyone on Facebook or you can look at just the people that are connected to your page. Now you can only use the second option if you have at least 1,000 followers. Now, when you first get it, it's not going to show up immediately. It may take a little bit before Facebook allows you to see it, but we're going to be concentrating on the first option. If you look on the left side here, you'll see that you can put in their location. And then remember, we want to be specific when we're narrowing down who we're talking to. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the client profile that I believe I'm aiming for. And remember, in our example, we're talking about, let's act like we're a makeup artist. So I'm gonna click on, let's say 35 to 40. I never suggest you go over 10 years. Make it a 10-year span because if you're going outside of that, it's not gonna give very accurate data. Remember, we're thinking in generations. After you get to know your audience, you may expand that. So we're gonna look at females or women that are interested in, I think we said MAC Cosmetics. And notice there's a lot of other things like beauty industry and all these other things, but we want to be very specific here. And again, we may say that they shop at Trader Joe's. Let's see if they're here. There you go. Again, you could keep on narrowing down this information and their interests more and more so you can get a better picture of who you're talking to. For now, I'm going to leave it there, and then let's look at the information that's showing up here. So here you're gonna see the demographic information. Now, this audience in particular is a 1 million to 1.5 million audience sample. And you'll see that this is the age that we put in. And then you'll see here, the relationship status, most of them are married. So that means when you're creating your visual content, you may want to include a couple and not just a single woman. You also have their education level, they've been in college, what their job title might be. So as you're looking through here, you'll also see the pages that they like. What's great about this is you can look at where they shop. Notice that people also like Lancome, Benefit, Birchbox, well, it's not NYX, it's NYX, that's what they said. And that's how you pronounce it. But what this does is gives you more insight on what type of visuals you can use, what kind of color codes you can use. I would go ahead and research a lot of these pages that they like and see what type of branding they have, what kind of colors, what type of words, how are they doing their Instagram. Use it as inspiration. Now, I'm not gonna go through everything here. This is some time that you need to use to create your perfect client. Write down what they like, write down what they're purchasing, all of those kind of things. And what you're gonna do is include that in your video marketing strategy. All right, let's look at a brand that a lot of you know, and let's dissect how they are putting together their brand identity or brand guide. They actually made it public, which allows me to share with you guys. So we're gonna look at Mailchimp. If you look at Mailchimp, they actually have their branding that they put publicly, which I absolutely love. I'm gonna include the link below so you can follow along. Now here you'll see that Mailchimp has this bright yellow, right? And it says crafting Mailchimp's new design. And you'll see that they have their brand colors in here. They talk about being more than just an email system. So a lot of us know them as automated email, but they're letting you know right there that that's not just what we stand for or who we are. They talk about their framework, which is a word that is used a lot in marketing, branding, and sales. And then notice how they're highlighting free and expressive. They talk about being expressive elements, creativity, harmony. They're using specific words to actually tell you about their brand. They talk about being consistent and grounded. They talk about their logo, their typography. I really want you to spend some time looking through this and reading through this. This is a really, really specific guide, and it's out there for the world to see, and they make sure that that is consistent throughout their branding on the internet. So as we're looking, I just want to go ahead and go down and point out a couple of other things. Notice they have the word bold in here, right? They talk about a couple of other things, their fonts, and they also have their colors. If you go down, notice the hex number is there. They have their additional functional colors, their background colors. What this does is it takes the guesswork out of the team having to create graphics. So let's actually look at some of the graphics that they're using around the internet and how they're using this brand guide to be consistent. Then we're gonna take another example of just someone that I follow on YouTube, and you can see how you can apply that to your brand, being a solopreneur or just someone with a small team. Okay, so I'm on Mailchimp's Instagram. One thing that you'll see that's very just in your face is that bright yellow and their logo. They're staying consistent with that, but look a little bit deeper. You'll see that they're continuing that black and white that they had on their brand guide, even in their photos that are black and white. They're bringing out some of their complementary colors. They're also using that same or the same continuous fonts throughout their branding. So they're very consistent. They have a guide and they're following it. Some people have guides, but they're just not following it at all. So this is just a great example of being consistent. Okay, let's look at something that might be a little bit more familiar and that you can relate to a little bit more. So I follow this, I'm gonna call it a brand, but her name is Marquita, and she has At Home with Quita, and it's on her YouTube channel. That's where I found her. But if you look, she also owns a business called Little Miss Fancy Plans, and she is a planner. Now, there's a couple of things that's very specific about her branding that I want you to take a look at. Let's go. So if you look here, everything that she does is minimalist. So I am definitely not a minimalist. You'll see that although I have minimal elements, I use very bright and bold colors, right? But if you look at her, it's obviously about relaxation, organization, thus being a planner. So if you look at all of her colors, she always uses black and white, pops of grays, maybe very pastel pinks, pastel browns, but look how continuous this is. She's talking about at home and being at home. She often includes her family. So since she talks about planning meals, keeping your house clean, just all. I think she actually has a pack about home maintenance or something like that. But all of this appeals to maybe the mom that wants to be more organized, more relaxed, and less chaotic when she's dealing with everything. But if you look through her brand even more, you'll see, and I don't know where it was, I saw it yesterday when I was looking, there's her husband, there's her daughter. A lot of times she'll have things with her daughter in it. It's just really, really minimalist. And if you look at her other branding, so if we go to her Instagram, same thing. She uses the continuous marble, I'm gonna call it marble, from up here. She's using that here, very minimalist. Same with what she's wearing white, everything that she has her family in here, very, very consistent. But what you'll see in addition to that is when you look at her, now this is her website, right? Her daughter's there, but when you look at her business and you go over to Little Miss Fancy Plans, let's go ahead and pull up that site now. Same thing, very consistent. Notice the gray bar here. Notice that she's using the same fonts, black and white. Even in her products, they are very minimalist. And I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit because you'll see that same marble throughout her branding. First of all, I suggest you go over to her site. I just love it. I don't have kids. I'm not maintaining this big house and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm actually not drawn to minimalist type branding, but I just love the way she puts things together. I just think it's so creative. Now, how can you do that in your branding? We looked at Mailchimp, which is really bright and bold, and then we looked at something that was very minimalist, and it's really dedicated to specific audiences in each case. So when you create your visual branding, what you're gonna wanna do is create your colors and your brand boards and your brand voice, all dedicated to that perfect client, but keep it very consistent. Okay, now you know the 3 things that you're supposed to do, right? You have to figure out who your perfect client is. Spend some time on this. I always tell my people, go ahead and grab some tea or some coffee or a little glass of wine, whatever you need to do. Sit by your little window, write out exactly who this person is, right? What is it that would relate them to you? What connects them to you so they would feel at ease in that, you gotta talk to your audience like they're friends, because if you're gonna work with them, you do want them to be, pleasurable, right? Maybe somebody you would hang out with. So make sure that you're creating your perfect client. Then narrow down everything that needs to go in your brand guide. And then the last thing is be consistent. I would love for you to share your brand guides with me. Make sure and tag me on social media if you post it anywhere, or if you have a photo that shows consistency, or even a couple of photos, tag me. I want to see it. All right? Peace.